good morning, everyone. Hey, for those of you who were here Wednesday and Thursday, what do you think? This is amazing. As I said Wednesday, it's an experiment, and we were a little bit nervous. I didn't sleep many nights thinking about, oh my God, people are going to walk out. And I just cannot believe how wonderful the synergy between the participants and the people on stage is. And it's really a true example of what slow living is. Slow living is about giving back to your community, giving back to yourself instead of just taking. You need to know that all the performers and speakers, all the people who are running this are giving. They're all volunteers. Not one person has asked for anything extra. The gift of giving is the most rewarding gift you can give. So I thank everyone for doing that. And also, we could not possibly do any of this with all our very giving sponsors. And that's why we're able to provide for scholarships and sliding scale. So I want to thank, number one, our overriding sponsor, Merchants Bank. You can see there is Crop Organic Vodka and Farmers Gin. And you've seen before in your program, as well as on the screen, the various sponsors who are providing for this. The Sandy River Trust Foundation is providing for scholarship for students. And I have a very special surprise for everyone. We're very lucky to have with us today His Excellency Zygmantas Pavilionis, the Ambassador of the Republic of Lithuania of the United States. Would you please stand up so everyone can see you? And Mr. Vaidotas Asmonas, who's the Attaché for Agriculture of Commerce of Lithuania. And Ms. Carrie Seacrest, who was recently appointed Honorary Consul of Lithuania to Vermont. And Carrie lives locally and is looking forward to making a lot of connections for Vermont and our local area with Lithuania. And we're so pleased to have you. And to create those wonderful, wonderful relationships. Thank you very much for coming. I know you're very busy to take the time to come and visit with us all day. So if you would like to meet with them at any point, they're here the whole day, and it's such an honor. So we've got so much planned, and I'm not going to take any more time. So what I would like to do is, once again, with great honor, introduce Linda McInerney, the Artistic Director of the Slow Living Summit, a wonderful friend, an incredible inspiration who has helped create this wonderful, wonderful conference. Linda.
All right. It's the last morning, everyone. How's everybody? This has been incredible, has it not? Right? Welcome. We're going to wrap it all up today with a magnificent time for you. And we have Lithuanian dignitaries. What? Welcome. Welcome. We are so happy to have you here. So, and I'm going to do the thing because it happened once, even though we're at the Slow Living Center Summit where we thought that we would never have to say this. Apparently we do have to say this. Would you please, my darlings, you will turn off your cell phones. Thank you. I worship the ground you walk on. And now I'm going to introduce to you someone, oh my goodness, I have such a crush on this guy, it's terrible. When I went to Hawthorne Valley, I just was swept up in a snow swirl of delight, spending the day with Martin Ping, who is going to speak to you about the magnificence of soil. And because I don't have enough of a memory, I'm going to read to you some information that you want to know about Martin Ping, and you also want to know that I had to steal his reading glasses in order to share it with you, because I left mine in the car. So I'll give them back to him right after I'm done. So here you go. Martin Ping is the executive director of the Hawthorne Valley Association in Ghent, New York, an organization aimed at promoting the integration of society and culture with education and arts. Martin has been at Hawthorne Valley for more than 20 years, although you wouldn't know it, he's holding up very well. He is. He taught practical arts in the high school, served as director of facilities for 14 years, and managed several multi-million-dollar construction projects. And this is a guy who has banged a bunch of nails in this community. It's amazing what this guy has done with his own two hands. Martin has balanced his time developing the synergies amongst the association's diverse enterprises and the 150 co-workers who carry these initiatives while cultivating collaborative relationships between Hawthorne Valley and other organizations in the Upper Hudson Valley, Berkshire region, as well as like-minded initiatives nationally and globally. This was another thing that blew me away when I was hanging out with Martin that one snowy day. He was telling me that he also has, in addition to local community members, he has brought in students to live in his community, on his property, from war-torn countries like Afghanistan, to let them be part of an intentional community. Really cool, just crazy, crazy good. He is co-founder and storyteller for the Magical Puppetry Theater, a founding member of the Slow Money Alliance, one of the great inspirations to Orly Munzing, who we adore also, for this conference, and has served on the boards of several not-for-profit organizations, including the Advisory Board for Slow Money, Center for Environmental Policy, National Advisory Board at Bard College. Wow, did I say all that? Did you get that? Northeast Organic Farming Association of New York, and the Advisory Board for Ethical Markets. See, I mean, Martin's outrageous, I'm telling you. And then, accompanying and playing with Martin is a band. They're called Quiet in the Head. And they're going to be just to my left here. You'll hear them in a minute. And they include Jonathan Talbott, Seamus Maynard, and Jonah Thomas. So without further ado, I'd like to return the reading glasses that I have stolen from Martin Ping to Martin Ping, who will be coming out with Quiet in the Head right now.
Danke, thank you.
You're going to have a great time.
Yep. Good morning. Don't you think we should start every morning like that? Well, I would like to thank Seamus, Jonathan, and Jonah for composing music and driving all the way over here to share their music with you. Usually I'm sitting out there watching them and enjoying them, and it's a total thrill to actually be sharing a stage with them. Good thing they didn't ask me to sing or anything like that. But it's also important to, I think, start the morning with gratitude. I try to actually do that as an exercise, to make my first conscious thought in the morning be one of gratitude, since we have so much to be grateful for. And along that theme, I would like to thank Orly and Linda. And you should find on your chairs a little packet of salt that you could just use, take a grain of when you think of the introduction that Linda gave, especially the one that she gave on Friday, where she had me as the founder of Hawthorne Valley, which would have been quite something since Hawthorne Valley was founded in 1971. And I know I look old, but I'm not that old. It's great to be in Vermont, a neighbor to New York, one that we often look north and east to for inspiration. It's great to be in Brattleboro, which is this town where the old and the new come together in a very eclectic and lovely way. And I feel like a lot of what we're trying to do at Hawthorne Valley and a lot of what stands behind biodynamic agriculture is that braiding of all of the indigenous ancient wisdom that has carried us this far, and somehow braiding that into our modern consciousness. And so we're in a theater here with the zodiac that takes us back pretty far, and looks like a bunch of Greek mythology maybe, and then, I don't know, what is that, Microsoft Windows up there? So it feels like a very appropriate venue to give this talk. I would like to invite you on a journey, and I wish I could actually invite you to Hawthorne Valley. It's a lot more fun to see it than to hear me go on about it, but I will show some pictures, and that will hopefully, each one will be worth 1,000 words, and then I can just be spare on the words. But I also want to start with a little bit of context, and this picture I saw just a couple nights ago, and it's actually a picture from the Hubble telescope, and it's a picture of 10,000 galaxies. So I'm thinking, all right, the Earth is a pretty big place. I drove from New York to Vermont, took me a couple hours. It's in the solar system. That's, yeah, feeling pretty large. In the Milky Way, that's about, I'm starting to lose it at that point. And there are 10,000 galaxies in this photograph. I feel remarkably small at the moment, which is a good thing. Let's see, how does this thing work? Maybe I'll turn it on first. Let's try that. Now we're getting closer to home. So I just to get oriented. But also, this journey is both spatial and temporal, and this, I think, picture marks an incredibly important moment in the human story. This is Christmas Eve, 1968, and it's the Earth rising over the moon, this iconic image where, for the very first time, we really get to look back on ourselves, on the Earth, and it starts to seep in to our consciousness what a beautiful living jewel we're living on, and what we are charged with stewarding and caring for. And as somebody who really loves to explore as a hobby the evolution of consciousness, I think this is a turning point, because this is the moment when the universe becomes conscious of itself through the human being. And this becomes then an extraordinary, deeper responsibility for us to take that on and recognize that, as Goethe said, I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the determining element. And We now know where people are throwing around the term Anthropocene or Anthropocene, however you want to pronounce it. New York, Vermont probably have two different versions. But it is the age where we understand that the human being is determining the fate of the Earth story. And I think that that is in the very much the material sense, and we know that through climate chaos and all of the other elements that we're faced with. And I think it goes into an interior space and into outer space and onto a much deeper level of what that responsibility actually is that we carry. This is in many ways informing our work. It's 1968, so this is around the time that a bunch of biodynamic farmers and Waldorf school teachers were meeting regularly to discuss what they were calling the evident need of their times. And if those of us who remember that period of time coming out of civil rights movement, the great social tension over social issues in the country, you have assassinations, you have riots in cities, you have agricultural secretary telling farmers to get big or get out. You have many of the challenges that we're still facing them. Wait a minute, it's 2014, and in many ways a lot of that has just gotten more intense. What's going on? Well, what these guys came up with was two guys and gals and folks was I would distill it down to two primary questions they were working with, because there were agriculturalists in the group, and their concern was the plight of the small and mid-sized independently owned farms. What was going to happen as our ag secretary was telling farmers to get big or get out, clear everything from fence row to fence row, move away from agriculture into agribusiness. So separate culture out of the picture. And on the other hand, the educators were saying, well, we're educating mostly in urban centers, and the children who are coming towards us are having less and less opportunity to actually connect to the natural world. The mechanistic worldview is coming into their lives earlier and earlier. Materialism, technology, all pressing in on every side. And these young people will one day grow up to be the stewards of this beautiful jewel. How is that fair? How can we ask them to do that if they actually have no relationship to the earth in the first place? So I think in a very brilliant way, what they did was they mushed the two questions together, and integration is actually a theme along with paradox, so figure that one out. But for me, I'm always seeing like there's two sides at least to everything, but not really, and I'll get to that later. And yeah, well, it isn't because we have to integrate it back into the whole story. That becomes the human. That's the definition of the human being in the middle there. So these folks said, let's buy a farm. We'll have it not rely on family succession. We'll have it be really like a community asset. We'll decommodify the land, if you will. And we will make that a real working farm so we can demonstrate that biodynamic agriculture is viable. And we will make it a farm where children are welcome and open it up to visiting classes from urban centers. And as you will see in my photographs, a few more things have happened since then. And I'm very moved by a passage in a little volume of essays called In Evident Need of Our Times, written by Carl Egge, who was one of the founders of Hawthorne Valley. And in the passage, he wrote about the farm school, which is what is Hawthorne Valley now. What we are founding here is a seed, the seed of a living organism. That organism is essentially threefold: educational, artistic, and agricultural, as expressions of thought, feeling, and will. Each needs the other if the whole is to flourish. All are interrelated. For young and old alike, this work together will create a place in which it is possible to become, in a true sense, a full human being. I get to wake up every morning and walk to work where the goal is to become a full human being. I feel tremendously privileged and think I would like to hear a little music just while I have gratitude. It's all right. One of the slides is missing. I'm just kind of having an image of Henry Barnes and Carl Legg and everybody, the founders, just, yeah, definitely getting down. I knew them when they were like in their 90s, so. But they would have loved it. So, 1972, Hawthorne Valley Farm was purchased. And in those early days, there was maybe 1.5 full-time people. There were no animals yet. It was a dairy farm. Before that, a hay farm, all in the same family for generations, but basically moving with the pulse of agriculture and the relationship of where Hawthorne Valley's place is. And place also matters very much in the story. I was not there in 1972. In 1972, I was on the Jersey Shore where I grew up. I grew up in Spring Lake, New Jersey, which we call the Irish Riviera. I'm one of 9 children, and I grew up in a place where I really had a sense very early on in my life for the privilege of living on the edge of a continent in this in-between place. It's probably has something to do with why in-betweenness is such a favorite theme of mine, because there you are on this edge with everything that happens in America on this side and the whole ocean on this side. It's extraordinary to grow up with that influence. And I would say, at the very least, it instilled a sense of reverence in me that I remain grateful for to this day, and hope that we can find ways to instill that sense of reverence in our children. I believe it's a very important capacity and has ways of morphing into other capacities as we grow older. I also had a sense early on that I was being raised in community. I had several, what I call my Spring Lake moms. You would go from house to house. Rules were stricter in some houses than others. It didn't matter. You knew you were loved and held in each house. And this, again, is what all children deserve. And as a community, like a community of Brattleboro, or a community of heart like Slow Living, or a community like Hawthorne Valley, we want to provide that same platform, that same foundation for our children to grow up feeling held by the community. And the third theme, I think, in my life, this sort of, everything's in triplets because this was a love story in 3 movements. After all, I have to think in 3s, is food. Somehow, and I can't really point to one thing, but when I was 15 years old, I came home and told my mom I was going to be a vegetarian. She said, "That's nice, and you'll have to cook your own food because I have to cook for your brothers and sisters and your father and myself." I said, "No, that's the whole point. I want to learn about food. I want to know about my food. I want to understand it." So I very quickly got into the idea of organic agriculture, had a garden in my backyard, rode my bicycle 20 miles to find organic anything on the Jersey Shore. Fruits and veggies back then sort of resembled fruits and veggies, but it certainly wasn't the kind of plentiful bounty of organics cropping up in every supermarket and grocery store and the plethora of farmers markets, et cetera, that we see today. So reverence, community, and food are kind of strands in my life, and in 1984, those strands and some other mysterious things that came to me out of the future led me to a place called Hawthorne Valley. Actually went there because we were looking for a doctor who did home births for our second child, our daughter Chandra. And we found out about a guy named Philip Nkeo, who probably, for all I know, delivered you guys too. And he was late for Chandra's birth, but that's okay. She's all well and good. And for 27 years, when people said, "What led you to Hawthorne Valley?" I said, "My daughter Chandra." So, and I believed it for 27 years, and the story has shifted a little, and you'll find out later. That's another mystery. I love mysteries. Maybe you have some mystery music over there in your instruments. It's I'm going to take you to Hawthorne Valley now, and we're going to, this is not the slow part, this is going to be the fast part. We're going to kind of whip through some slides so you can just have a little bit of a sense for what it is that's standing behind, somewhat behind this talk. So our mission is actually the integration of, the renewal of society and culture through the integration of education, agriculture, and the arts. It's got a little bit skewed in the bio there. This is where we are in the Hudson Valley. So this river here goes, actually it's the indigenous term for the Hudson Valley was the river that goes both ways. It's tidal all the way up to Troy, New York. And I think that's just a very important picture. If you think pictorially, which is a good way to think, it's a very important image of this exchange constantly going on, this ebb and flow. And Hawthorne Valley is part of that exchange because there's this little settlement down at the bottom of the river called New Amsterdam. You've probably heard of it. And we bring children from that city to the farm, and we bring product from our farm to the city. So we're part of a watershed, a food shed, a culture shed. It's all happening in this great exchange. This is what Hawthorne Valley looks like right now in the spring, up on what's called the West Hill. And this is, you can see the market garden there. There's some other gardens as well. It's a biodynamic farm. So what that means is we think of the whole farm as itself a living being or a living organism, and everything should be in balance and harmony, and our inputs and our outputs should stay on the farm. And in that picture, then the dairy cow has a very, or animals in general, but here dairy cow has a very particular role to play, and is actually, in many ways, you could say, the heart of the farm. That's what we do. Farmers grow soil, and then soil grows plants. So what we're doing is composting all of the manure, and I was actually thinking, Karen is here, my marketing director, of a new tagline for Hawthorne Valley. This is televised, so I should be careful, but making good shit since 1972. So the amount of, we have 400 acres, and then we lease another 500 that we can graze animals, cut forage, and grow some grains. And that determines the fertility cycle and how much vegetables we can grow. So we have, in various places on the farm and on a couple of the neighboring parcels that we lease, about 14 acres of vegetables under cultivation. This is our corner garden. It's roughly 2 acres, all done by hand, just as a project to say you can grow copious amounts of food in smaller places without tractors. And all the corner garden produce goes primarily into our store. But there's this other happy little byproduct from the cows besides what we really have them for, and that's milk. And so we actually bottle raw milk right on the farm. It just goes from the cow to the bulk tank into those bottles, and we can only sell that in our store on the farm. But it makes it a destination because there's not a lot of places that are able to do that. Some states it's illegal, like step away from the white substance. Crazy, crazy stuff. What were we thinking? I don't know. We also make a yogurt, so this is some of the culture part too. And this gets, the yogurt, we actually is the one thing we kind of wholesale, so you can find our yogurt pretty much up and down the eastern seaboard. And we often put things on the yogurt cups about Hawthorne Valley, and people in Atlanta say, oh, wow, they got a summer camp up there. And it's amazing. It's like a great kind of marketing thing. You'll see lots of children, and we'll get to that part. We're not hiring child labor or anything like that. There's something else going on. Whatever doesn't go into raw milk or yogurt goes into the cheese vat and becomes a variety of soft and hard cheeses. And you can just think of, if you want to think of value, it's 100 pounds of milk in a 10-pound wheel of cheese, roughly. So this is a good thing for our 6th grade business math class. They go over and learn all about the dairy herd and what it takes to to maintain a dairy herd and what it takes to what they pay from the creamery for 100 weight of milk, and then how much labor goes into that, and then they go into our store and they look at all the cheese in the cheese case and they look at where it's coming from, they calculate food miles, just begins to build up a picture of the relationships that are involved in the whole food system. And quark. You all know about quark. See, that's the problem. Nobody knows about quark. But when they do, that's our secret weapon. Hawthorne Valley will be on the map. It'll be called, they might even change the river to the Hawthorne River, and just call the whole valley Hawthorne Valley. Once quark is a spreadable, like sort of creme fraiche to spreadable cheese, very popular in Europe. You can do everything with it. Very versatile. Now, we also grow grains, and this becomes part of the rotation. We're trying, the Hudson Valley was the bread belt of the nation back when the nation was smaller, and now most of the grain production has moved elsewhere, but we're trying to bring it back, and then we take the grain and mill it up there in our mill, and we have a bakery, and we bake lots of bread and sweets and all kinds of good stuff that I have to be careful of not having too much of. There are 2 loaves that we're baking that are 100% Hawthorne Valley biodynamically grown grain, and that to me is like so totally awesome in the evolution of the food story that we've been participating in. And then our grains make it into a lot of our other breads as well, but there's just 2 that are and they're the ones I buy, you can imagine. So we go from our bakery down to our kraut cellar, and which used to be the bakery before we moved it into its nice new location. And we make a whole line of live lacto-fermented sauerkrauts and veggies. And this is something I like to have with every meal because we as a species, we kind of grew up with all these other organisms on the earth, and they supported us. They're all in our gut. They help us with our digestion. And I was filling out a form for some kind of census thing, and they said, ethnicity, and there was a box for other, and I just checked other because I'm like 90% bacteria and other organisms and 10% human. I once was invited to go speak to a big multinational company that makes Band-Aids and cleaning supplies. Their initials are J&J. And it was really cool because this marketing guy, this sort of rogue guy in the company, is trying to green J&J. And this is an important lesson because all these companies that we tend to demonize, not that I would demonize J&J, I wouldn't demonize anyone on TV, but I wouldn't demonize anyone because they're all filled with good people, right? Even some of those companies that like start with M, or you know who I mean. There's good people working there, and we need to work with them, and we need as a choir, as Charles was saying, we need to sing to the choir, but we also need to invite more people to join the choir. And so this guy said, he invited me to come down and speak to J&J, and they asked me about sauerkraut, and I said, just what I'm saying here. Well, it's good for you, I eat it all the time. And I said, look what we've done to our food. We've sterilized everything. We've nuked it to make it so there's nothing left in it, and then and everybody's going around and they're putting all this stuff on their hands all the time to. Oh, wait a minute! You guys make that stuff, don't you? Well, you can put a little on my shoe, and I'll just put my foot in my mouth for, coming down and biting the hand that's feeding me. But they were all very good-natured about it, and I think they understand the plight that we're in this like rush to sanitize our world. We've created a whole host of unintended consequences. Anyway, that's kraut. This is our store. This is where we sell most of our kraut and bread, either in the store. A lot of our produce from the corner garden is in the store. Of course, our dairy products, but then the yogurt's wholesaled. We tag all of our produce for where it's coming from so people can make choices and know they're farmers. The red tags are Hawthorne Valley, so in the summertime, that will be the predominant color. We also have 4 CSA groups. This one's on the farm, and then we have 3 down in the metro area. And we've been going to Union Square in Manhattan since they opened in the farmers market. We're there 2 days a week. We're at Columbia 2 days a week. And we're at Inwood 1 day a week. So direct marketing and on-farm value adding is what made Hawthorne Valley be able to be at least not go under. Let's just call it commercially viable, but like every farm, it hangs by a proverbial thread and is one weather event away from real problems. There are other animals on the farm. These guys have an important role because the creamery generates a lot of whey, and the bakery and the markets all have shrinkage. So these are probably the most well-fed animals on the planet, and it's a good thing for them. It's also, I find, in the paradox of that theme, it's hard to imagine that these guys are eating better than probably the majority of people on the planet. So just, I have to hold that as a thought. Other critters that we have on our farm. So we have all these programs for children. Since 1972, visiting schools come to our farm. The children stay for a week. 9-year-olds are kind of the ripe age. This is what we call the birth of the pre-ego. The children are coming out of that dreamy state of early childhood where, like we were probably until 400 years ago or so, living a little bit into the story, the zodiac, the mythologies, in a way that was, we were participating in it, we were fully immersed in it, we weren't fully conscious of it. We didn't feel ourselves as being separated out from it yet. That's the journey of the early child. When they get to be 9 years old, all of a sudden they realize, oh, my parents have warts. I don't like my teachers. The stuff starts to happen. They just get a little bit antsy. And they have bodies that are gangly, and they have limbs, and there's more to life than like going like this. And so you get them up on the farm and you have them muck out a cow stall, and you see the wisdom of the multifunctionality of farms, and the fact that farms are places where children can connect to these relationships in a way that allows them to connect to their whole humanity themselves. So we also educate aspiring farmers. We have 6 apprentices every year. Hopefully a future apprentice sitting here in the audience. She knows who she is. We have something called Farm Beginnings, which is a whole farm planning course that the Land Stewardship Project developed, and we're, I think, trademarked or licensed or something. And then we have a 2-week-long biodynamic intensive in the winter. So there's a lot of education going on. We do Farm Beginnings on the farm. We do it in Ulster County, and we work with the immigrant farming population through Grow NYC in Manhattan. And we're doing some work now in prisons with farming, and we're doing some work with returning veterans. This is the main house, which was the family home for the family we purchased the farm from, and this is where the visiting schools stay when they come. So 600 children a year, roughly, living in that house for a week or more, and having this immersion into agriculture and ecology. And it's a great thing. I mean, really, I never get tired of it, and I can never take for granted what I have. When you have children coming up from the city and going out into the garden for the first time, and you pull a carrot out, and their eyes get as big as saucers, and they say, "Whoa! Food comes from the ground?" So, well, yeah. Where did you think it came from? From the store. Okay, before that, now they start to think. We had, don't worry, spelling will get better. We had a little child see a calf be born, and she called to her friend and said, "You gotta come, this calf, it was just born. Really, you can tell the extension cord is still attached." And I should read it word for word, but we got a letter from an 8-year-old from Bronxville, New York, just this week. I got it right before I came. And she said, This was the most awesome experience in my whole life, really. Well, not really, because I'm only 8 years old and I have a lot more life in front of me, but it was great. I know people that were on the farm in the very first class in 1972. 2 of them work at Hawthorne Valley now. And I know people from like the full spectrum of that whole lineage. And every one of them, when they talk about their farm trip, they become so animated. They remember every small detail. And you can understand then the importance of making these connections. What we were talking about in the evident need of our times, for me, is it all comes down to, actually, that we're disconnected. That, for me, lies at the root of every crisis we're facing right now. And why we chose to remove ourselves from the story and become disenchanted and disconnected and fragmented and atomized to the point that we're not in that kind of proper relationship. We're not, it was David Orr, I think, who said, we're not displaced, we're deplaced. And I feel like this is the work that Hawthorne Valley is doing. This is the repair work to make that first connection back to first when you put your hands in the soil, in the body of the earth, and then you have that relationship to Mother Earth, and with that the whole beginning to move back into balance with the divine feminine and wisdom, and then through that you can have a connection to your peer group in a new way, and even become into a new relationship with your own self and your higher sense of higher purpose. So I believe, even though it seems so simple, and I know I'm talking to the choir and probably many farmers out there, we all know this, but for a young guy coming up from New York City who's maybe having the very first opportunity in his life to have a nurturing relationship where he's the caregiver to another sentient being, it's powerful, powerful stuff. So if I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket, they're going in the basket of place-based learning. These are the folks from Brooklyn Automotive. I love these guys so much. These guys, their teachers tell me, they need to basically fight for survival from the moment they lift their head off the pillow till they put it back on at night, to stay out of gangs, to stay off of drugs, to stay out of the crossfire of guns. They have to wait in line to go through metal detectors to get into school. And they're kind of like, hard scrabble, Bed-Stuy guys. They come up on the farm, look at them. I make butcher blocks with them, and we're going to put them in the teaching kitchen, and they were so into it. I said, well, you guys want to take these home? Can we? Yeah, I have a wood burner. You want to put your name on it? Yeah, can we write anything we want? Yeah, sure. So I'm walking around looking at it. Mom, I love you. Love Hector. With hearts drawn all over. Like, I'm just going to go in the other room for a minute. And amazing, amazing stuff. Yeah, that's why I put that one in there, just for that effect. Okay, next. The sheep are pedagogical, and again, this is all about relationship, right? So they see the sheep born, they take care of them, they shear them, they plant dye the wool, they felt, so you get this great textile experience with the material. They make friendship bracelets, they make friends, they form relationships. They cook feasts together, all the food coming from the farm. They grind the grain, they make homemade pasta. They make all the accoutrements for the table. So they know, start to have a sense of all the relationships. This meal is brought to you by the farmer, the baker, the candlestick maker. They're all, oh my God, it doesn't just magically appear. This is the Kids Can Cook summer camp. Half the children in this camp we bring in from Hudson and other places, and we bring them for free. If they qualify for public assistance in their meal program at school, then they come to our summer camp for free. And it is a feast. There are yet more beings living on the farm. So we know all about the domestic animals, we know about the plants that we've cultivated, we know about the children that we're inviting on. There's also nature, and to have the right relationship to nature, to give voice to nature, to make sure that we are working in a harmonious way with those who also wish to live on the farm. We actually have a farmscape ecology program. And we have friends here who have supported that, and to those friends I say, thank you, because this is pure culture, this is research, they're not making any widgets. They're trying to look at the intersection of education, or of agriculture and ecology, and the intersection of human culture and how we interact with the land to find a better way, or to find a way, to just understand it. They're not trying to sell anybody anything, they're just inviting people to be interested. They are in the county in a really big way, in a very quiet way, but permeating the whole county. We lend them to any farm that wants to know about their farm in this kind of ecological sense. And they work with the conservation groups, land planning groups, and offer all kinds of walks. And it's a remarkable program. And I often think, well, if we're going to start really talking about changing the economy, we have to get with the program and learn some of the lingo. So I always hear people talking about hedge funds, and I think, well, these guys are doing it. Like, we're growing hedges, and it supports bird life and native pollinators and everything, and like, you can invest in that and just come and watch your investment grow. And here's the hedge fund managers. Wouldn't you trust them? Conrad is a wildlife, a PhD biologist. Claudia is a PhD botanist, and Anna is a anthropologist. So they're plant life, animal life, and human life. And just, I can't say enough for the work they're doing. It's I'm so grateful that Hawthorne Valley is able to support that. We, as I say, lend them out to the county. They do all kinds of walks all over the county, and we're starting to see Columbia County as a farm organism, not stopping at the boundaries of Hawthorne Valley Farm, but really understanding. There's a farmers research circle, and there are, we can get 65 farmers coming together. One of the projects they did actually was researching, Anna did it, the new farms in Columbia County. So we're in the business of trying to grow farmers, right? And we know that census has said that we've been losing farms every year. They profiled 65 new farms in Columbia County, made these beautiful posters of every farm. Thank you. And then made a display, a gorgeous artistic display, and they put it in every town library in the county, like as a movable display. And they had evenings where the public was invited, and young farmers from the towns were on a panel, and old farmers were there saying, "I thought agriculture was dead in this county. This is amazing." And it's true. So hay farmers, when the automobile was invented, it changed. Did that mean it died? No, it morphed into apple farming and dairy farming. But then when they became commodities and people expect to buy them for cheaper than it costs a farmer to produce them, what a dumb idea, I'm sorry. Then that farming is dead. Well, a diversified farm with direct marketing and on-farm value adding, it ain't any easier, but it's not dead. And there are 65 new farms in the county and counting. This is Hawthorne Valley Waldorf School, and this is our pre-K through 12th grade Waldorf Independent Day School. And we have right now roughly 270 students, and I have to race home for the 12th grade play after the summit. I wish Charles was still here. I don't know if he is, but we totally value play, especially in the early years, and see that as that's the children's work. We also realize that we think children should be home with their moms, but this is not how society has constructed itself. So we do a lot of things in the early years that would just be like mimicking what you would do in home life. We think of education as drawing out that which is already there in the child. We have the radical notion that these children are actually spiritual individualities incarnating on the earth with a destiny and a path and a task and work to do. And it's not our job to get in the way. It's not our job to standardize them. Have you ever met a standard human being? We want to meet them for who they are and hopefully produce some of the most amazing, artistic, well-balanced, gorgeously handsome individuals. Yeah. A lot of handwork. Here we are forging their identities, not forgery. These slides are kind of not so, I guess they're so big, but this is one of our students from Afghanistan volunteering for Habitat for Humanity in Hudson. And this is one of my favorite stories. This is Ali and Arafa. And Ali has been going to a town called Barati in Tanzania since she was 12 years old. And while she was over there, she formed a relationship with the school over there, and the teachers came over to New York State and they toured all these schools in the Capital District, all the independent schools, of which there are several, and then they were looking to send one of their students to the States, and they came to Hawthorne Valley School and they said, this is the place for a student from Tanzania. And so they went back and Hawthorne Valley offered a 5-year scholarship for a student to come starting in 8th grade and go all through high school. And Ali Reinhold did a Indiegogo campaign to raise the funds for Arafa's travel and to be able to go back and forth and see her family and everything. Successfully raised it. It was so awesome. And they had this whole village council, like the whole village had to say it was okay for Arafa to go. It couldn't just be like the parents or the teachers. And when they said yes, I saw the video of it. It was really quite astonishing. People said, how much is this worth? You know, this 5 years of tuition at a school in New York and all this travel and everything. And they got out their calculators and calculated and translated into their currency. And the number was so astronomical to the people. They couldn't believe that. It was like, you know, they could have built villages and villages. So it was just. And Arafa was very moved when she heard she was coming. I love having her at Hawthorne Valley. She's a gem. So education, agriculture, arts. We're morphing from the education piece into the arts. We have some adult education. We're doing foundation studies, and this is called Alkeon Center for Adult Ed. Foundation studies in anthroposophy, which is the kind of underlying epistemology beneath all this, and also a 2-year Waldorf teacher training program and some immersion in the arts. And then we have a program called Free Columbia, which is another art immersion program, and it's looking also at art in its relationship to social life and money, and how can we, in essence, decommodify art and have the creative process be supported freely to be the process that's actually allowing us to connect to something completely new without the influence of money and influencing it anyway, maybe corrupting it or whatever it does. And that was a mural in the neighboring town, Philmont, that they did, and this is our refrigerator outside our store, which looks much nicer now. And then we have a theater company which is just merged into Hawthorne Valley. We've been like, you know, sharing the same DNA forever. And David Anderson is directing the 12th grade play tonight and works with the students a lot. They have a summer theater stock. These guys have worked with them. And he also goes to Asia and trains teachers in the burgeoning Waldorf school movement in Asia. And he also goes into local prisons, and this is Julius Caesar in a local prison. prison. Quite stunning. And we have something called Center for Social Research, and this is looking at Steiner's indications. Rudolf Steiner, who I should mention, is behind Waldorf education or the founder of Waldorf education in biodynamic agriculture, influenced the Camp Hill movement, influences architecture, medicine. One of those Renaissance guys from the late part of the 1800s, early 1900s. We're looking at his ideas around how society can organize itself, how we can work with money in the world. And he had very distinct ideas, and I think some of them are actually being played out right now. And part of our research is to look, well, who's doing these things that it's not like it was his idea, it's just he was tapping into something that made sense. Other people thought the same things. So where is it cropping up now as we begin to see the cracks in the financial system that we've constructed, and where can we see some signs of something new, something different, something to support? And one of the things we support is a little granting program. We have a little micro-granting program called CREDARE, and I think it was Ahmet who mentioned credit comes from, the root word of credit is to, how did he put, trust. And credere means, as I understand it, to believe, which is the same thing, right? I believe in you. I'm going to give you this $1,000 to do a project that's based on the cultivation of empathy. So we're looking to cultivate empathy. And this is Faith, and this is another great integration story, because Faith did our Farm Beginnings program. She's now farming. She's part of the Farmers Research Circle. And with the help of Anna Duhan, our anthropologist, she came up with this project to convene all of these 65 new farmers and then some into a working group. How can we collaborate better? How can we aggregate what we're doing? How can we make it that we're not all everyone has to do everything on their farm, but we can find ways to be supportive of each other? And she put together a one-day, kind of World Cafe style charrette, and we had to turn people away. We could only fit 75 people, and we had to turn people away. It was wonderful, and also, you don't want to turn anyone away, but great that there was that much. And they're following up. There's all these now working groups out of that, and they're doing actual practical things, because farmers are actually practical people. So, you guys feel like playing a little music? Why don't you give my hoarse voice a rest for a second, and I'll tell you why I think of this. How are we doing on time? I have just a few more closing thoughts. So I hang out with cows. This makes me by nature a slow person. Cows aren't in a hurry. When we have children visiting the farm and they first get there and sometimes they're in their Air Jordans and they're kind of like, I say, no, wait, there's a different picture here. These cows, what are they doing all day? They're wandering back and forth on the same pastures, rotating through the pastures for the last 43 years. They're eating grass, which is stored sunlight. All the forces of the cosmos, forces of the earth, they're chewing on that grass. They digest it. They move it over to their next stomach. They digest it some more. To their next stomach. To their next. And I asked the children, what could those cows be thinking about all that time while they're ruminating, chewing on that grass? Well, I think they're asking themselves, what does this ground need in order to make better grass for future generations of cows? And then in this alchemical miracle of the cow's stomach, they produce a perfectly tailored package of fertility and deposit it on the land. Amazing beings. So, I told you that my daughter led us to Hawthorne Valley, and I really did believe that. However, 4 years ago, Olivia came into the world, and Olivia is my daughter's daughter. And I had the privilege of actually attending the birth and holding my daughter while my granddaughter was born. Every day, pretty much, except for when I'm here, which is hard, believe it or not, I spend every morning with Olivia, and I walk her to kindergarten down the same cow path that I walked her mother to kindergarten on. And she was probably about a year old, and I was carrying her at that point. And we were singing and laughing, doing the stuff we do every morning. And I got just to the top of where the cow lane kind of drops down, you can see the whole farm. And I just looked at her and I burst out laughing. I said, "It was you all along, wasn't it?" And I firmly believe that to be true. I think that I'm not a lineal person. I'm totally chronologically impaired. My mind doesn't work in the way that clocks and things work. I think time is a much more mysterious phenomenon. I can't say I know. Actually, the older I get, the less I know. And not knowing is a good thing sometimes. It's a place, it provides an invitation for intuition and, dare I say, grace to sometimes come in. And that earlier capacity for reverence, I think, in our older age can become grace if we are so fortunate to make it to old age in this crazy and distracted world. So, you can see why I'm in love with the being of Hawthorne Valley and what it's meant in my life, and how connected I feel to this. I'm also, as I say, I celebrate mystery, I celebrate not knowing. I think the future is, well, I heard it expressed one, as there are actually two futures. There's futurum and adventus. And futurum is what we put in our day planners and in our little gadgets in our pockets, and what we think we're going to do and what we think are going to happen. And sometimes, works out that way, sometimes not so much. And adventus is the future that's already there waiting for us, like my granddaughter, waiting to grow up at Hawthorne Valley. And somehow harmonizing the two seems to be part of our task. So I think I'm going to go from the center back out to the periphery or something here, And I will leave it, the last word to my good friend Rilke, who always says things that I think better than I can say them. I'm glad I got my glasses back. I felt so lovely for a slow summit. I would like to beg you to try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers, which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then someday, far into the future, you will gradually, without even noticing, live your way into the answer.
And now, my darlings, you are as completely in love with Martin Ping as I am. Martin, that was amazing, honey. Thank you so much. Incredible. The end, my darlings. You may move on to your next moment as slowly as you can. Oh, it's all written down in your plans. Nothing, may I tell you, nothing has changed. I was told by Martin Langefeld that everything is as it is written, so you are all set. Nothing has changed. Okay? Have a great, great time, everybody. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Oh.